Are you looking to include literature-based learning in your American history studies? Well, I'm Emily from Table Life Blog, and today I want to tell you what I am learning about learning American history through literature from Common Sense Press. Now, I've recently been working through this with my daughter, and I actually think this specific curriculum really stands out when it comes to literature-based learning for history. And so I want to give you an overview of the curriculum itself, and then I want to tell you 3 quick observations I am taking away as I work through it, because I think it will help you better understand the material and the curriculum and see if it's a good fit for you. With that said, the curriculum itself is all contained within this one book. So the book itself kind of serves as a framework to help you walk through 7 different American history eras. Those eras are the Colonial Period, the Revolutionary War period, westward expansion, the Civil War period, Industrial Age, the World War years, and then the post-war years. So you have 7 different units that you can use, and all of the suggestions within each unit are perfect for younger elementary kids all the way through middle schoolers. So you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to using this material with one child of a specific age or using it with all of your kids all the way up to middle school. So that's one thing to note real quick as far as an overview is concerned. As for what's contained within each unit, I currently have it opened up to the American Revolution unit. So it starts off with a prologue that kind of lays the groundwork for what was going on and what kind of led up to that specific era in American history. Then it moves into the setting, and the setting gives you different book suggestions you can read with your kids to understand, literally, the setting of that era. After that, you have a selection of vocabulary words that you can discuss with your kids to help them understand some specific terminology that could come up in the reading suggestions for the unit. You can use those vocabulary words however you wish, or not at all if you don't need to, but they are there to use as needed. Then you have information about the plot. So that's kind of just a summary, a general idea of what was going on in that era and what would be covered in the various reading selections for the unit. After the reading suggestions comes a whole section of dialogue. So some questions you can ask to kind of help your kids work through some of the books that they read and process the ideas in those books. Okay, after that, it moves into activities and hands-on things that you can do with your kids to kind of enhance your learning and reinforce a lot of the things that you discussed in your readings. So for example, this American Revolution period, you have like a craft you can make your own whirligig. You have make your own horn book, then how to make a book of flags from the Revolutionary War period. So things like that. One thing I do want to point out is you do have a pretty good variety of activities that pretty much just require things that you might already have lying around, and then some that you might have to go get supplies for. So it is a good mix of those things. You won't always have to go out and buy things to make this happen. After that, it moves into movie suggestions, and you can use those. You could pick 1 or 2 of those, or maybe just 1, or if you need to for a specific unit, you can bypass those movies altogether. But those are generally pretty solid recommendations. Like Liberty's Kids, an old homeschool favorite, Ben and Me, some American Girl movie suggestions from the historical American Girl series. So a lot of just good recommendations like that, again, to enhance your learning. After that, you have recipes that are going to be true to each period that you're studying through the series. And then you finish each unit out with a handful of biography suggestions to go along with important figures from that unit, and usually a couple of other extension ideas just to round it out, especially if you had a kid who was especially interested in some of those things that came up during your studies. So that's a general idea of what one unit holds. So I hope that's helpful. Now I want to move into my 3 takeaways for this curriculum, and I hope this also helps you really gauge whether or not it's a good fit for you. Okay, so the first thing you need to know about learning American history through literature is that it is so flexible. It truly is a framework, and so that means you can work through as much of this or as little of this as you want when it comes to each unit. You can do 1 or 2 books. You could read all the books. You could watch 1 or 2 movies. You could watch no movies. You could watch all the movies. You could do all the things when it comes to activities and recipes and games. You can literally pick as much as you need or as little as you need and still really soak up the benefits of this curriculum. Again, because it is written for elementary through middle school, I do want to point out that you also have flexibility when it comes to who you can use this material with. Lastly, you could use this to supplement another history curriculum, or you could use this as a standalone history curriculum. So you have a lot of flexibility in how you use the material, when you use the material, how long it sits on your shelf. Do you break it out sporadically? Do you go through it, unit by unit by unit, over the course of a year? It's totally up to you. It is seriously, seriously flexible and allows you to pick and choose what works for you in your homeschool in whatever season you're in. So I think that's one thing that really makes it stand out in the sea of other history options. Secondly, I want to point out that it's comprehensive. And honestly, you don't see a lot of this when it comes to American history, especially when it comes to elementary ages. For whatever reason, a lot of American history resources tend to focus specifically on colonial life or the American Revolution as a whole. And then if you're lucky, you might get, a touch of pioneer life or maybe, acknowledgement that the Civil War happened somewhere in those studies. But it really doesn't hit all of these different eras the way that this one does. And that's one thing I really love about it. I specifically like how it even goes all the way into those post-war years, because I think it's a really valuable way to help kids connect with their grandparents and great-grandparents. And I say that because when you can make these generational connections, history becomes something more than just what happened long ago. It actually helps kids understand that, these events and these settings helped shape our grandparents and our great-grandparents, and it helps you see that trickle-down effect into who we are even today. So I really love that this includes the World War years and the post-war years, even on an age-appropriate elementary age level. So I think it's really fantastic in that sense. So yes, you do have the colonial times and you do have the American Revolution, but you also have westward expansion, and you also have the Civil War, and you also have the Industrial Age, etc. So again, that's one thing that really stands out to me, and I truly love that it has that attention all across the board when it comes to American history. And lastly, I want to point out that because it is a framework and because this is the book, it's super affordable. And I think that is nice regardless of who you are and how long you've been homeschooling. It is a gift when you come across a curriculum option that is truly affordable. I say that because you purchase the book, and then after that, it's up to you how much you spend. The majority of the books we've used so far have been books I borrowed from my local library, but then there were a handful of books that I already owned from working through them with my older kiddo several years ago. So I've literally not purchased any books to go along with this curriculum. And I also pointed out earlier that you can pick and choose which activities and recipes you want to make based on what you already have on hand. Because of that, it is affordable. You don't always have to go out and buy all these different supplies to make all of this happen. The same is true with the movie selections. You could easily just choose movies based on the streaming services that you already subscribe to. So you have a lot of flexibility financially when it comes to this curriculum as well. It's also nice that this is not a consumable resource, so there's no need to buy all these different student books or worksheet packets or anything like that to go along with it. This is what you're buying. You don't have to buy all of the other stuff for the students. So again, you have a lot of flexibility when it comes to how much you spend while using the curriculum, and I think that that is a beautiful thing when it comes to homeschool curriculum. Okay, so to wrap up, it's super flexible, it's comprehensive, and it's affordable. So all of those things, along with that overview earlier, I hope all of that gives you an idea of what to expect with learning American history through literature. Okay, so I'll put a couple of links in the description to help you learn more about the curriculum and answer any questions you may have. One of those links will be a link to my review where I wrote all about it and shared some photos and some other thoughts about it. And then the other link will be a link where you can download a sample unit to take a look at it for yourself. So as you can tell, I think this is a fantastic option for teaching American history, especially if you're looking to do it with literature being your base. So I invite you to check it out. I know you're gonna love it. And that's all for now. Until next time, happy homeschooling.